Hey team, this week we talked to Sean Fitzpatrick, widely regarded as one of the greatest All Blacks of all time.
Yeah, I feel like he's the captain of New Zealand. He was out the front for the All Blacks. He's now doing amazing things on the world stage as the chairman of the Laureus Sports Academy. And the stories, the names, the WhatsApp chat, they're going to blow you away in this episode.
Yeah, top of my head, Rory McIlroy, Tom Brady, Tony Hawk. We spend the second half really digging into the stories and the impact his organisation is making on the world. And the front half is legendary All Blacks tales, captaincy, leadership. This is a real goodie. Hang in there. This episode is brought to you by TAB. Download the new app today and get your bet on. Sean Fitzpatrick, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, guys.
We're super excited to have you in studio today. You're running a 2-summer operation these days. Are you back for a couple of months?
Yeah, we're back until sort of mid-Feb, end of Feb, which is great.
Yeah.
Have you
2 summers.
Have you ever done a London winter? You must have done one.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, when the kids were at school, that was sort of it was hard to come back and sort of over Christmas. So yeah, we've done quite a few. I've been there for 20 years.
Yeah, it's done a few winters. It's actually crazy to think that you've been 20 years away.
Yeah, I know. But we sort of, as you say, we come back every year now. So you sort of, I probably see my mates more than I probably do if I was even living here, because we sort of, you make a real effort to catch up. And like this afternoon, we've got a sort of an old Auckland drinks time, so which is great to catch up with all those guys.
I wonder what the mindset. We had a catch up last week. Same thing. Friends catch up once a year. Like when you're preparing to go into it, are you like fizzing thinking about who you're going to bump into and who you're going to see and where you're going to rekindle those old friendships?
Yeah, there's no old friendships. It's like a family. Sort of, you live together while we're touring, and you see them once a year, and it's within 2 minutes you're back to where you were last year at this time.
Same old stories get trotted out again.
Yeah, same old stories. Getting older, losing hair, all those sort of things. But no, it's just great to sort of keep those relationships sort of burning away.
Well, you can practice here for the next couple of hours before you tell your stories to them. Tell the same ones. We weren't really sure where to start this episode until I talked to your wife, Bronwyn, last night. And she made a throwaway line that really grabbed me. She said, you were playing golf at Taraiti Golf Club this week, and Rory McIlroy was there and sought you out to have a chat. And that feels like a pretty good representation of a life well lived, getting singled out by one of the greatest ever to come and have a yarn. But is that normal? You and Rory got a history?
I know Rory from just through golf, really. And that was pretty cool because they were all so excited up at the golf club that Rory was going to be playing at their golf club. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool. And then he walked in, and the first person he sort of signalled out was me. Yeah. They're like, what? Hi, mate, how are you? Yeah. But yeah, that's, I still pinch myself because I've got that sort of imposter syndrome that how can I be talking to Daley Thompson or Tanya Gray Thompson or Chris Hoy, Edmund Moses, all these people like Edmund was my childhood hero.
Yeah, right.
And to call him a friend is like, wow, it's so cool. Even now I sort of pinch myself.
I want to put a bit of context around that because we're going to talk a lot about Laureus later on. But as chairman, you probably have these incredible interactions all the time. So Laureus is a global organisation, uses the power of sport to transform lives. And Seamus and I were geeking out on the website this week, looking at the caliber of athletes you've got that are academy members. And I want to read them out so the audience gets a picture of what we're talking about here.
And this is just a selection, right?
This is like 10 of 40 on there. Ian Botham, Cafu, Del Piero, Martina Navratilova, Rahul Dravid, Ryan Giggs, Monica Seles, Tony Hawk, Lennox Lewis, Jack Nicklaus, Viv Richards, Sachin Tendulkar. Unreal.
And Sean Fitzpatrick.
And Sean Fitzpatrick is the boss.
That is amazing.
Do you have personal relationships with all of those people?
Yeah, we keep contact. We have a WhatsApp group, which is pretty
you don't.
How many's on it?
We've got about 52 on it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Are you admin?
Yeah. No, God, no, I'm definitely not admin.
I was going to say, responsible for admitting and kicking people out or monitoring. Is it banter filled, the WhatsApp?
Yeah, a bit of banter. Some people more than others, but it's just like I love like Gary Player is one of our members, and he won't type, he only talks. So that's pretty cool. 'Cause he's got a great voice.
So he's just dropping voice notes.
Does voice notes, and it's all really neat actually.
I would like to think someone in that group has it on mute, like they can't be bothered with it, despite like the biggest. I
better check it before the awards night. 4,500 messages. Geez, I've been behind the times.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty cool to be chairman of that. Chairman of the academy. So there's three pillars. There's the academy. There's our awards, which we have once a year, the World Sports Awards, that's really fun. But the thing that we're all involved in is the Sport for Good Foundation. That, as you said, uses sport as a mechanism for change for most of the children that are involved in the projects are at risk. So we've helped change the lives of over 7 million children in 25 years, which was when we started 25 years ago, I'd never ever thought that would be possible.
When we sort of lined you up as a guest, we knew your rugby heritage and lineage and all that, but it's like what you've done afterwards. I'm really excited about like getting stuck into that, but I just do want to stay on Rory at the top because I don't want to brush over that. Like, did you know he was coming?
I didn't know until we were heading up there. My mate who we were playing with, he said, "You won't believe who's going to be here." And I went, "Who?" And he went, "Rory McIlroy." And he said, "We've got to be really quiet. There's no photos. Can't do any of this sort of stuff." So yeah, to see him there, it's cool. It is, for him to come to New Zealand. He flew down. He just literally arrived that morning from America, and was there with like 6 mates.
Yeah,
just playing golf in New Zealand.
Don't watch his tee. Everyone's kind of just like at the clubhouse window having a little peek.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a connector, isn't it? Golf.
Yeah,
Stephen plays, I don't play, and I feel like at moments like this where I'm hearing that story, it's kind of like, oh, that's the value of getting out and playing the sport, is the connections that you make on the course and the conversations that you get to have.
But I think that's in most sports is the same, isn't it?
I'm not sure Rory McIlroy's nipping down for a casual game of touch while he's in New Zealand, is he?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So you think he plays golf for a living, and then he goes away on a boys' trip playing golf.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's cool for New Zealand too. We've obviously got these great golf courses that the world's best players in the world want to come and play because it's not on the circuit that they play regularly. So I think it's nice, great for New Zealand.
Stephen recently had a situation where he was playing with Eric Murray, and his words, not mine, he really let Eric Murray down. Have you had a situation where you've been playing with a prominent person and you've not held up your end of the team?
Oh my God, every time I play.
What handicap are you working off these days?
13.6.
Okay.
Yeah. So
some good days, some bad days.
Yeah. At the moment, a lot more bad days. So I've just had a knee replacement. So I haven't played for quite a while. That's my excuse at the moment.
Yeah. Always have one locked and loaded.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of touch on that list of names and the people that you surround yourself with. Like, are there any common traits that they share from? Like, these are all like the most elite athletes in the world, right? Like, are you seeing something when you're talking with them that is common across them all?
They're quite competitive, most of them. It's interesting. The team sport guys, the football guys, the cricket guys, we sort of tend to sort of move together. Sort of when we have our forums or when at the awards, it's normally the team guys sort of and girls sort of stick together, and the tennis players are over there or the athletes are over there. The sprinters, whatever they are, and then we all sort of come together and debate issues but they're all just especially Laureus in terms of sport for good, they're there for a reason. They can see the value in sport and especially now the way the world is at the moment, how important sport is in terms of uniting people. We go back to our founder Nelson Mandela. That's what he said. He said sport has the power to unite people. Sport has the power to change the world. Sport speaks the language the youth of today understand. So we try and live that, and the new academy members that come in have to have that sort of ethos. that the Sport for Good Foundation is the key.
What's the criteria for getting into the academy? As chairman, do you turn people away? How does that work? Is there a fixed number that we can?
The 69 of us now. Was 35 founder members back in 2000, and you have to be retired, and then your name gets put forward, and then that goes before the Exco. The Exco approves it, and then it goes to the wider academy to make sure that everyone's happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So, have I got it right that when you ran for chair, you were up against Boris Becker and you got the nod over Boris?
No, not Boris. Edwin he'd been the chairman for 16 years, and then my name was put forward by somebody else, and that was it basically.
Do you know who that person was? Are you allowed to out them?
I won't say, but yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them.
Wow.
We've got a couple of rugby players.
That helps. Yeah.
Peter Blake was also a founding member too.
2 Kiwis in that first 35 is pretty.
Amazing.
It's pretty
amazing,
incredible.
Yeah, to be sitting in that room, and there's 2 of the 35 founder members. There was about 30 of us there. And Peter and I were there, and Hugo Porter and Mornay Duplessis. So we were all sitting in a row together, sort of looking across the room at all these great athletes.
Yeah, thinking, like an Avengers Assemble situation with these people. Who's going to be next? Who's going to be next coming through the door?
And then for Nelson Mandela to walk into the room, I was like, wow. I was 37 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Then. It was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
How many interactions did you have with Nelson?
Well, we saw, when we first went there in 92, like we were the first team back in there after the breakdown of apartheid. So obviously then, 92, 93, 94, the World Cup final in 95, shook his hand. And then I didn't see him again until he came to the awards in 2000.
Is he the kind of guy that you genuinely get starstruck when you're in his presence?
He's the greatest man, and what's followed on from that has this said to me without question, he's the greatest man I've ever met, for what he did, and what he did in 95. And I went to the All Black game at Ellis Park, this year. That was the 30th anniversary of the breakdown of apartheid in 94. And 30 years on, we're back at the same stadium. And 30 years prior to that, I was in 94, I was playing in the stadium. And the stadium was 95% white. The team was 100% white. And in the space of 30 years, it was 75% blacks and coloureds, and the team was probably 80% blacks and coloureds.
Crazy, yeah.
In the space of 30 years.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the greatest man in the world, Nelson Mandela. Had what he did in 95, just united a country. Him wearing that Springbok jersey, which was the jersey of his oppressors, the people that had him in jail. And he said, no. We need to use sport as a mechanism of change. And in the space of 30 years, look at the change. And that's purely through sport. And it's just phenomenal to think that happened. And it's because of him. And through our sport, which is even better, through rugby.
Yeah. Man, it's such a... and like I said, we're going to talk about how sport for good, right? Like what sport can do and some of the incredible stories along the way. I wanted to start at family. So Seamus and I grew up watching you on our screens every weekend, and we saw you as a hardened front rower, right?
Yeah.
But in talking to your daughters and your wife, we've had quite a contrasting picture painted. We had a really cool time connecting with them this week, and I want to read out a few things they said and then sort of dig in. So Grace and Eva said, "I think he only has a light side. I've actually never seen him in a bad mood or angry. I don't think he's ever really told us off in our life. He takes nothing seriously." And then Bronwyn has said, "I've always found it quite interesting because he is a Gemini, but I've never seen the flip side. I always think that that must have been what he took onto the rugby field with him, because the only side we've ever seen is strong, dependable, calm, reliable. He's that guy. He's been the most fantastic husband and the most fantastic father, and I feel very lucky and very blessed. That can't be.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is really beautiful. But
She's had a GST.
it can't be right though, Fitzy, can it? Like, your kids and your wife haven't seen you frazzled.
Isn't that lucky? Probably not. Being a Gemini, because I am a Gemini, and I'm chalk and cheese in terms of my rugby playing days. And I was quite different on the field than what I was off the field. So there's that side of it. I try not to get frazzled. I'm pretty relaxed, and growing up conversations, I'm not good at those. So
Yeah.
I try and avoid those when I can. But no, I just want people to be happy, and I like good people, and surrounding yourself in good people is really important to me. And I think I was lucky. I had a good upbringing in terms of the way mum and dad brought me up. Please and thank you, and nice to people, and deal with situations.
Well, I think you've definitely passed that on to your daughters, because they spoke really beautifully about relationship goals and modelling that they've witnessed from you and Bronwyn in terms of what a strong, healthy relationship looks like and how they can implement that in their lives. So what's the secret behind 35 years together and is that right? 40 years together, 35 years married?
Yeah. Well, I suppose, we've been, very lucky, and I think it's, like all relationships, you've got to work at them, don't you? And, there's challenging times, and, just to be able to deal with those challenging times is important, and deal with them together. And being very open, I think, when I started playing for the All Blacks, I was a builder, amateur game, 45 pounds a week when we were on tour. And I was like, my wife was a lawyer, so literally it was Bronny worked and I played rugby. And that was, then the children came along, Grace predominantly while I was playing. And, Bronny had to deal with that while I went away for, 6 or 8 weeks. But I think the upside is that we were very open about that. It was a partnership in terms of, do I want to be an All Black again? And if I do, it's it's everything. In terms of, I'm going to be away a lot, and we talk about rugby being, if you want to be the best All Black you can, it's 100% of your effort and time goes into that, and then the rest of it is about the people around you, and that's picking the right people.
Most important decision, right? Like who you pick as your spouse. Just echoing Shay's point, like relationship goals. Speaking to Bronny on the phone, she said you spend more time together than anyone that she knows, any other couple. Like you play golf together. You just seem like best friends. The way your kids talk about you, they prefer hanging out with you than their friends. Like that.
Yeah, we do, which is nice. I think in my generation when we were growing up, mum and dad, great parents, but in terms of going on holidays together, and it wasn't like it is now. Like our best mates are our kids, which and Bronny and I are obviously best mates, and it's important. And I love the kids want to be with us, because they're good fun.
They did say it's just come back to me, the conversation. They did say when you're back here in New Zealand as well, and they're not here, it's kind of like you're missing your playmates. You're up and at 'em 6 a.m. on the tractor, ready to go. Although the backgammon games, I think, can get quite competitive.
Yeah, I play a lot of backgammon. Yeah, but I'm like I'm the man who's driving the tractor and driving the boat, and come on, kids, let's go.
Come on, kids, let's go. Kids in their 30s, by the way, everyone. Just so we're very clear here. I love it.
Yeah. Take us back to the beginning, because your dad, Brian Fitzpatrick, was an All Black. Was it always, it was kind of written in the stars? Like, was that kind of the path that you were expected to take?
No, I don't think so. I think back to, Dad, he was an All Black in the 50s. And for us growing up, it was just normal, just for ex-All Blacks to pop in, Keith Davis to pop in, Ron Jardine to pop in, Bill Clark to pop in. It was just It was just normal. Like Dad never really spoke about being an All Black. He never had any All Black jerseys, no memorability around the house. And were we expected to be All Blacks? Probably not. We just had a bit of fun and played down at college rivals. And you got to remember, growing up in the sort of the late 60s and 70s, the rugby club was a real centre point of the community. It was a very much community-based club. I was at college rifles. Mum ran the tuck shop. Dad coached my older brother's team. And we'd spend every Saturday down there. And, then we'd head home at 7 o'clock, pick up the 8 o'clock on the way home and play spot the ball. And that was our day. I was a pretty big kid, overweight. So I was always playing with older kids. And no, I didn't think I'd be an All Black. Dad just sort of said to us, just play a team sport and make sure you enjoy it. And it doesn't have to be rugby. there was no other team sport to play, basically.
You're also the youngest of four, I think. So what we found common trait, like the youngest sometimes has to scrap and fight and almost it hones a will to win. Was that your experience?
I think so.
Back?
I was never given any latitude. Being my brother was 5 years older, so I'd always play with them basically, him and his mates, and they'd always beat me up.
Yeah, never take it easy on you.
And I think that sort of hardened me up a bit. And then my sisters would, beat me up, and but that was just the way we were as kids, And I always, hanging out with my brother, and we played a lot of rugby. We did, in the street after, school every day. We'd be playing rugby and learning how to pass the ball off both hands, kick off both feet, and I suppose that was just sort of honing our skills. But I didn't take rugby seriously, God, because I was always playing in the worst teams. Well,
you eventually make your way to Sacred Heart College, and you run across an accounting teacher, I think, who's a coach of yours, Guy Davis.
Yeah,
and he taught you three key messages, I think it was. Can you share what that was?
I just think because I was overweight, playing open grade rugby, and my mother sort of pleaded with the headmaster to let me play in the restricted grade. And he said, well, you can, but he's not going to play in any good teams. He was playing in the worst team at the school. My mother said, thank you, God, put him in that team. And we turned up. We didn't even have a rugby field to train on. We had 15 rugby fields at Sacred Heart College in 1977, this was. And Guy Davis was there. He was our accounting teacher, a lovely Fijian, knew nothing about rugby.
But a sevens guy, probably.
Yeah. But he changed our lives. He just said there's three key messages. And I just, as if it was yesterday, and he said, they are such important messages. He said, the first thing, everyone on this team is equal, no matter who you are. And you think about it there. I live by that because my father was a big stickler for that. Just everyone is equal. Don't think you're better than anyone else. And the second message is when you turn up here, turn up with a bit of attitude that you want to be here and you want to make a difference. And I think about that now. I think, when you get out of bed in the morning, I want to be better than what I was yesterday, and have an attitude when you turn up at work, I'm actually going to make a difference. It's like I just can't stand people that go to work just for the sake of going to work. And I know that's some people have to do that, and that's understandable. But why not try and make a difference when you're there? So that was a key message. And then the last one is be the best you can be, which we sort of live by, and even the All Blacks. We wanted to be the best we could be. And what he was saying to us is sort of where I got a lot of that from, is that winning's important. And I'm not afraid to talk about winning. I want to win. And, I don't know why we don't say to our children, let's be winners. And because it changes your attitude. If you want to win rather than just compete, you actually do things to try and win. In terms, I'm not talking about cheating or all that, but you learn you practice harder to be able to pass off both hands, kick off both feet, throw the ball with both arms. Then you might have a chance of winning. And if you don't, at least you know you tried your best.
There is a bit of that in society, isn't there? Taking away that sort of competitiveness and like the importance of being a winner more in terms of, in favour perhaps of sort of participation. Do you feel that has changed over the years?
in terms of it's more about participation.
Yeah, less about.
People say that it's all about participation now. But you look at most kids, they want to win, don't they? And I know, and everyone gets a medal. That's fine. But at least have the attitude about wanting to be a winner. I want to be a winner, and if you don't win, at least you've tried your best. And it's good to be a loser too. Learning how to lose is not a bad thing. And then I think as you get older, and it's the same in the All Blacks or same in business, if you stop winning or you stop competing, maybe you've just started to take your position for granted. Maybe you're not as good as you think you are. Maybe you need to try another sport. And it's a telltale sign as you get older that if you're not competing at the best of your ability, maybe it's time to have a bit of a change.
This is top of mind for me. I watched some clip of this American guy, Gary Vee, talking about, like, if you've got a 6-year-old and they get upset when they lose a game and they're crying, then they're going to be a winner. Like, don't teach that out of them. Don't tell them it doesn't matter. It does matter to be a winner. Because I've got a 6-year-old who loses his shit every time, he loses a game. He's super competitive.
Yeah, I wouldn't encourage that. Encourage them to be, to be competitive and want to win. But, in terms of crying because they lost, that's not much fun, is it? As a 6-year-old.
No, yeah.
I can appreciate it if you're a 20-year-old,
Yeah.
But as a 6-year-old, they should just be enjoying themselves but wanting to win.
Yeah.
And then if they don't win it, let's say, okay, maybe I need to work on something else. I can still remember Guy Davis saying to me, he said, "Well, you were a winner on Saturday." I said, "Mr. Davis, I kicked the ball with my left foot. Fantastic." And we lost the game by 100 points.
Yeah.
And work on something next week,
And I think that's an important distinction there as well, isn't it? It's not always the final result. It's what are you attempting to win at within that context?
Because you think look at the All Blacks this year, or last year, whenever this is going out. The way they progressed throughout the year was amazing. Really, they grew because they were learning. They were learning how to play South Africa at Ellis Park, which 90% of them hadn't played there before. That last 20 minutes when we didn't manage the game very well, they'd never been in that situation before. And one of the players who would say that he struggled in that last 20 minutes, they go to Ireland 3 months later, and that particular player is the man of the match. Because he's learned how to deal with those situations, and that's what I've liked about the All Blacks. Since Razor took over, is they're actually growing together. The coaches are growing together because they're learning. They're learning about winning and how to win.
Friend of the show, Rick Solizzo, told us you were a high school prodigy at Sacred Heart, but I wondered if there was a time when you knew that you were good. Was there a year or an age where you were like, I think I've got a future here?
I had natural ability. But I think I was quite lazy, and probably wasn't until I went to the university club. Like at school, I was captain of the first 15 New Zealand secondary schools. That was just through natural ability. New Zealand under-21s, natural ability. Captain New Zealand under-21s, natural ability. And it wasn't until I went to the university club and Graham Henry said to me, he said, "You could be an All Black one day." I'm like, "Don't be so stupid. I'll never be an All Black." We were smoking. Foxy and I were smoking and drinking, and that was just the way it was. And I look back now, and maybe I could have been better.
You're saying that quite humbly. Like seems like the pathway for an All Black, right? Like,
but in those days there wasn't really a pathway. So many kids got left out and missed. Michael Jones didn't play under 21s.
Yeah.
So in terms of it being a pathway, it was more about obviously if you had the ability, But I think sometimes, because it wasn't they couldn't record everything. There was, who knows who, and my son's actually playing pretty well. Come and watch him play. So there was actually scouts that went around looking at particular players.
And you had quite a prominent one in Marlborough, I think, 1983, that pulled you aside and said, if I was picking an All Black team, you'd be in it. And that was the late, great Pine Tree Meads. So you're getting some pretty sage advice.
I can remember saying to Foxy, because, Graham Henry had said to us, because he was coaching us at the university club, he said, like, if you two, stop smoking and drank a little less, you could be All Blacks one day. But that's so stupid. And then we were down in Marlborough playing for the New Zealand under-21s, and Foxy and I walked off the field, and Pine Tree came up to us, and I'd never met him before, this great man, and he said, hello, I'm Colin Meads, I'm the head of the All Black selectors. Oh, wow.
It's not a bad Colin Meads, by the way.
He said, if I was picking an All Black team tomorrow, you two would be in the team. Bloody hell. Foxy and I went back to the change room, we're having a cigarette discussing this. And I said, Foxy, I'm going to stop smoking because I want to be an All Black. And he said, don't be so stupid, you'll never be an All Black. And then Foxy became an All Black a year later. I think Foxy still smokes now. And I haven't had a cigarette since that day. And became an All Black 3 years later.
Yeah.
That's a moment, isn't it? When a legend like that sees something in you, potentially. I guess that's a penny drop moment.
And I think, I go back to what Dad said originally about just playing a team sport and make sure you enjoy it. I think my longevity came from having that upbringing where he let me play any sport I wanted to. I had a great social time in those teenage years. And it wasn't until I was 21 that actually we said, right, let's have a crack.
But it's still not smooth sailing, is it? Because again, friend of the show, Ricardo Salezzo, suggests you're at an Auckland training or a game, I'm not sure where.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And you're throwing a line out to the late Andy Hayden.
It's the imposter syndrome again, where Andy, so may he rest in peace, great man he is, and line out throwing was not good. It was not one of my strengths because I was a prop originally. And then Graham turned me into Graham, Henry and John Drake turned me into a hooker. And I didn't realise I had to throw the ball. And playing for the university club, wherever I threw it, it didn't really matter. It was always a good throw because somebody would catch it. And it wasn't until I got picked in 1983 for an Auckland tour by John Hart to go on a world tour with Auckland. And I went to training, and in front of me was Andy Hayden, Gary Wetton, Alan Wetton, all these great All Blacks. And I was like, oh my God. I'm normally throwing into Matafa Keenan or Glenn Twentyman or John McDermott. And basically I realised that I couldn't throw the ball on. I was useless. And then Andy came to me, he said, right, I've got 3 throws. I'm like, what? 3 throws? Yeah, I've got a front ball, a middle ball, and a back ball. And I went, yeah, okay. And then I was picked to play against Gloucester or somebody in the first game of the tour. And after 3 or 4 lineouts throwing into Andy, I realised that I couldn't throw the ball in. And he pulled me over and he went, come here, kid. He said, see that guy over there, Ian Abercrombie? I went, yeah. He said, could you go and tell him that he's playing on Saturday? And I went, what? I thought I was playing. He said, nah. You're not good enough. And that was literally, I didn't play another game. I played 1 game on that tour. I remember going over to Harty and saying to Harty, I said, Andy's just told me that I'm not playing on Saturday. He said, oh, really? Oh, well, that's the way it is. But it was the best thing ever. And then I went away, and Drakey told me we played against a guy called Kevin Boyle one night on a Wednesday night down at university against Marist. And Boyle was the best line-out thrower, best scrummager I played against. And Drakey said to me, why don't you go and ask him to teach you how to throw the ball on? I went, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Went over, asked him to, so I went over, I said, hello, Kevin, my name's Sean Fitzpatrick. I marked you tonight, and I just wanted to know if you could teach me how to throw the ball on. And he went, F off. so I then went back to Drakey and I said, he just told me to bugger off. And Drakey said, did you buy him a beer? I went, no. He said, go and get him a jug of beer and go and ask him again. So I went back, I said, Kevin, Sean Fitzpatrick again, he's a joker bear, could you teach me how to throw the ball? And he said, meet me at the Auckland Domain at 5 o'clock on Monday night. And turned up there. He said, bring your own ball. And literally we did that. And every Monday night for about 9 months we met, taught me how to throw the ball in. And then in sort of November, Andy turned up on a Monday night and said, right, kid, I hear you've been doing a bit of work. I'd like to help you also. So good lesson.
Lesson in humility.
Well, lesson, but also a trait for success, I think, right? Like how you responded to a bit of adversity or getting knocked back.
God.
You went away and you trained for 9 months.
Yeah. Poor Bronny. Like we used to, everywhere we went, I had a rugby ball, but be at the beach, I'd be practicing throwing the ball, and it's my hand, it's my hand the right way, But that's what it took. And then eventually I got better. Most of them say, I'm going for a beer tonight with the boys. AJ will be just saying, oh, you were useless. You never hit the spot, all these sort of things. But, a good lesson.
I want to bring in JK's voice now and talk a little bit about leadership. He says, I think Sean revolutionized the role of captain. He was the first one to reach out and create a leadership group, and that came from his humility. I always remember him calling 4 or 5 of us in and saying, look, if I've got my head in the scrum and we've got an intense time in the game, you need to be feeding information in so that we can make the best decisions. And a lot of it was by default because he wasn't meant to be captain. So it was a bit of a shock for him. But then he just morphed into one of our greatest leaders, which I think is the real amazing thing. And he did that through being humble about what he knows and what he doesn't know, and then using the people around him, which I think has been a model that the All Blacks have used ever since. Mm-hmm. Because how do you define it? Because a natural leader, or you learned your leadership, or how did that evolve?
I probably was a leader, but I didn't want to be. Maybe I was nervous about being a leader. I wasn't a very good public speaker, and probably the imposter syndrome. I didn't think I was, I wasn't an Andy Dalton or a Gary Wetton or a Buck Shelford or a Colin Meads or a Brian Lahore. So, I was just happy doing my job. And, I broke my career up into 2 blocks of 6 years. The first 6 years, we were quite good. But everyone on that team just did their job. And we had great success. And in the second block, I wasn't meant to be captain with that. Most definitely, Laurie Mains did not want me as captain. And he'll be the first one to say that Mike Brewer was his captain. And I was just happy to be in a trial team because he got rid of quite a few of us after the 91 World Cup. And I was just happy to be there. And I was captain of all the possibles. And Mike Brewer was captain of the probables. And 60 minutes into the game, Mike Brewer blew his calf muscle. And he came over and he went, Fitzy, I'm gone. I was thinking, if he's gone, I'm the captain of the possibles, and there was literally no one else.
Yeah.
And then I can still remember Earl Curtin, who was a good mate of Dad's, and he was one of the selectors, but he became a very good friend of mine. And he tells a story that the reason they took, because in those days you play the trial, and then you have a shower, go into the team, have a after-match reception, and then they'd name the team there. But it took them probably 3 hours to come out of this meeting. And the reason that took them so long was who was going to be the captain. And Earl was sort of pushing for me, and Laurie was going, no, can't have a bloody Aucklander as captain, there's no way. Mm-hmm. And that was it, really. And I was a bit shocked. And as I said, I didn't want to be captain.
And how old were you?
27. Mm. And as JK said, it was just a case of me saying, because there was a lot of new people in the team. And I used them as a sounding board, really. I didn't, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't saying too much, or was I saying enough? I used JK and Foxy. They were my two people in the team that I trusted. And was I humble, or was I, it was just a case of getting the best out of the team, really. And I didn't have to do too much either because Laurie wouldn't let me do too much. I didn't do a lot of speaking. I'd have all these notes. I'd be sitting in the room making all these notes and go to the team meeting. And then Laurie would finish and I'd be like, on the bus. I'd be like, oh.
Yeah. I had something to say.
But I think it was good for me. And as I said, that second block of 6 years when I became captain, just taught me so much, my God, in terms of transcending ages, cultures that we hadn't even spoken about. Inga Tugamala I swore at him on the field. And he came off the field and he said, Fitzy, if you ever swear at me again, I'm going to walk off. I'm like, well, and then he explained to me why in their culture that is just not acceptable, which we'd never really spoken about, So we turned out to be a fantastic team of leaders, to have Zinni, Michael Jones, Frank Bunce, Walter Little, J.K., even, people like Jeff Wilson and Mertz who were young, especially Mertz, coming in and letting them have a voice. We speak out now, having safe environments to be able to speak. And I think that was new. When I got on the All Blacks, you didn't say anything. You sat there when you worked your way around the changing room, and once you were there, you could say something. Where now, everyone has an opportunity to speak, which is really important.
Is that the real art of leadership? Managing the individuals within the team and treating everyone a little bit differently based on what they need?
Yeah, I think, that's something I had to learn because people are different. People bring different things to the party, and making people feel important. Some people like that. Some people need that. And making sure they respect where they are, who they are, and other people within the team.
I've heard you say in reference in other conversations that you've had that becoming captain of the All Blacks made you a better person, made you a better man. Mm-hmm. And hearing you recount and retell, it's clear that you did cram a lot of lessons into that 3 years, maybe between 92 and 95, where you were really forced to the forefront as the All Blacks captain. Is that a fair assessment?
I think I look back now and the John Harts of the world, John Sturgeon was pretty important to me, the manager during that time in '87, and I can still remember him coming to my bedroom in Dunedin and when I became captain, and it was one of the first games in '92 that we played Ireland, and he came and knocked on my door on Friday night. And I answered the door. Sturge is standing there. He said, Fitzy, can I come in for a cup of tea? I said, Sturge, love you to come in for a cup of tea. Have a bit of a chat. And I thought, here we go. He said, how are you enjoying this gig as captain? And I went, I'm not enjoying it at all, actually, Sturge. We lost a couple of games. And he said, you know why you're not enjoying it? And I said, you tell me, Sturge. He said, because you're not being your bloody self. And it was probably the best advice I'd ever been given. I was trying to be somebody else. Whether I was trying to be a Buck Shelford or a Gary Wetton or Andy Dalton or David Kirk. I don't know really, but it was the best advice that I could, be given really. And it was probably a case of him saying to me, you need to be comfortable in your own skin. And you think about, you guys, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, it's not very nice because you're trying to be somebody else all the time. So I always say to people, just be comfortable in your own skin. And if it may take time to work on that. You talk about JK in terms of mental wellness and all that. That is a massive part of being well, is being comfortable in your own skin. So that was probably the best advice I've been given. And it taught me a lot.
I'm really curious, when you play for the All Blacks, you join a club. Mm-hmm. But when you are the captain of the All Blacks, is that another club within a club that only a few people understand and get together and share that knowledge on how to do things?
We don't really. It is a special club. I think being an All Black is such a great honour. And it's still an honour. And that's a job for us now as custodians, really, is to make sure that legacy continues. and JK and I being away and going to the All Black games in the autumn is really important. Just to sit on the outside and then look in and, see if the Wallace Satitis of the world understand the legacy, the Brian Lahores of the world. Like for me growing up, to have Brian Lahore as my under-21 coach, to have Colin Mead as my under-21 coach was just like, wow. We'd sit around in a circle, at night and just listen to stories that these great men would tell us, which is important that we now pass this on to the next generation.
Do you ever stop and think about yourself in the same light as you thought about those lumineries?
Well, we are getting to that age now.
I mean, you are.
We're working our way up the tree, which it's important. Zinni and I went to the club night on the Tuesday before the All Blacks played England in London, and Zinni and I sat up the front like Colin Meads and Brian Lahore, and just told stories about our time of being All Blacks, and it's important. I think it's important to make sure that the Dave Gallaghers of the world are remembered. The first All Black captain ever. For me, that's really important. We are working our way up the tree. And what I love also is that, although I haven't been to many lately, is the All Black reunions they have one a year. And that's for everyone. It's not for the 1987 World Cup team or the 2011 World Cup team. It's about All Blacks and people that were around, whether you be a coach or a physio, just come together once a year and just have a chat and, remember how great that jersey is.
Your career, it crossed over quite an interesting time with the game going professional. But one anecdote I'd heard is that, like, you used to get billeted out when you're with the All Blacks, and there's stories of, you.
I think it was only once.
Was it once?
Yeah.
One time, yeah. But All Blacks getting billeted. When was that?
That was at the World Cup in '87.
Yeah.
It was after that, obviously the turmoil of the Cavaliers and, New Zealand didn't really have a love affair with the All Blacks at that World Cup until we started getting around the communities. And, you look at the opening game, I think it was 13,000 people, 14,000 people at Eden Park for the opening game of the World Cup against Italy. And then Brian Lahore, who was a coach, had basically said that, we need to take the game back to the communities. And so all our trainings were at schools, and after we played Argentina in our last pool game in Wellington, we were going down to Christchurch to play Scotland in the quarterfinal. And woke up on Sunday, heading off to the airport, and BJ said, boys, we're going over to my local pub and over the Ramatukas and into the Lakeview pub in Ekatahuna. We're like, well, just have a bit of a Sunday, a few pints. And off we go. And up over the Ramatukas. And as we approach the Lakeview pub in Ekatahuna, there's all these utes outside, bales of hay, barking dog, kids everywhere. And we go into the pub and it's just full of people. And mums and dads and their kids. And we're like, oh, God. So anyway, Buck and Stevie bring the guitar and we start singing songs, having a great time. And then eventually BJ stands up and goes, right, boys, right, Fitzpatrick and Lowe, you're with the Going family. I'm like, what? And that was literally all. And then Lowe and I piled into their ute and we bounced off down the road singing, and we arrive home and, sleeping in single beds and just fantastic. And then, then all the families got together and, that was brilliant. It was, I don't know if that would happen today, but
I don't think it would work today.
Quite a special memory. Just
the image of you and Lowe sharing.
Oh my gosh,
single beds, big All Black front rows.
I was just thinking of you bringing the All Blacks captain home to the Holloway household, and then just going, what? 4 kids running around.
Yeah. You think back to like Dad used to tell great stories about when they toured, in 53, 54 when they toured the UK. But they'd go away at Christmas because they'd be away for 4 or 5 months, and over Christmas they'd be in the UK. And Dad always talked about we used to stay on the Dilly in Piccadilly, the Dilly Hotel, and he'd say we'd go down to if you didn't have a family to go to by the 24th, you'd go down on Christmas Day down to the foyer of the hotel, and there'd be families there to take All Blacks home for dinner and stay for 2 or 3 days. So these All Blacks would be just around the UK. Amazing. Remember, no telephones, no nothing, and some would turn up, some wouldn't come back. And
Different
times. Yeah.
The other hallmark of your career, your playing career, was your longevity in terms of never really getting injured. I think 63?
Yeah, consecutive games.
63 on the trot, 92 total, 127 overall for the All Blacks. It's an amazing feat.
Not so good for Gats.
Well, no, not so good for Gats.
And non-pool, yeah. But that was, I got given opportunities. And then once I got on there was no way I was going to give somebody else the same opportunity I had, I got in because of the Cavaliers, basically, and I was a reserve. Bruce Amara got injured at training.
How did that happen?
Well, in those days we had live scrummaging.
Yeah, that's what JK said.
Had live scrummaging, and I had Drakey with me. So Drakey and I'd played, almost rugby, and Brucey unfortunately had a rib injury, and I can still remember BJ coming into because I remember when I went in the physio room, and there Brucey was. He had needles all stuck in all his ribs, and I think, oh well, that doesn't look very good. And this is on Thursday, right? And then Friday morning, BJ came into my room, and he said, Fitzy, he said, you're playing on Saturday. I was like, oh my God, I wasn't even playing for Auckland.
Oh, really?
No, I wasn't even playing for Auckland, and because Hardy hadn't picked me by then. And so this is 86, and Abbo was the hooker, Ian Abercrombie, and then and so that was that. And I had 2 games for the All Blacks against because the Cavaliers. Then the Cavaliers came back in. Hicka came back in, and I was like, oh wow, Hicka was one of my heroes too. Hicka, the hooker from Nongataha. And so I was quite happy just being a reserve for 2 tests against the Australians, and we lost the Bledisloe Cup. And then we went to France, and I got an opportunity there in 86, played 2 tests, and then it was the World Cup. And we had our trials at Whangarei, and I marked Andy Dalton. And after once again, go to the aftermatch function. Team was named, a bit quicker than my time. And Andy was named as captain, and I can still remember. And that was sort of a week before we assembled. And on the Wednesday, we assembled before the Italian game, the Wednesday before the World Cup started. And we met at the Poanama Hotel, and Brian Lahore was late because he had been snowed on his farm. So he couldn't get off his farm. So Andy took training, and we went across the road, and he said, right, we're going to do some hini mullahs. I was like, really? And you think about, we're just about starting for a World Cup. Why are we doing hini mullahs trying to get fit? And he pulled a hamstring. And I can still remember I was about 100 yards behind Andy because he was ultra fit. And he pulled a hamstring, and that was it. So I had an opportunity there. And in those days, you didn't come off unless you were injured. I can remember sometimes I was injured, but there's no way I was going to come off.
That's what I was going to ask you. How many times in those 63 games were you playing with a pulled groin or a hammy tear?
I remember I had a broken rib once. I remember Garraway, the little French prop, broke my rib. A cartilage, popped a cartilage.
Like in the game,
that was pretty painful.
Yeah.
Had your ear nearly bitten off?
Yeah, that wasn't
that. That wasn't
it. That was just a graze.
Was the 186 stitches or whatever in the Battle of Nantes? Was that just a graze?
I got a few of those. I had about 24 of those.
Because JK said he did the last 2, but you might not remember because he was a butcher. Is that accurate, or has he added GST to that story that he stitched up your head on the field because Buck's ball sack was being ripped open? So the doc was preoccupied.
I think JK's exaggerating. But yeah, I had a few stitches in that game. But yeah, you just played on. I think, as I said, it's that imposter syndrome where I was thinking, if he gets in, because I remember Gats, because Gats was a bloody good hooker, and I played against Gats a lot provincially, and they had a good team in those days. But I remember we were on tour, because there's a Wednesday team and a Saturday team, and the Wednesday team is trying to get in the Saturday team, and the Saturday team's making sure that they don't get in. So that was my job. making sure Gats didn't get in. I could remember Gats would be practicing his line after training. He'd have Gary Wetton. I think, oh, it's a bit dodgy. He's got Gary Wetton, who's definitely going to play, and Gats is trying to. So I'd go and practice my line out. It was whoever, Robin Brooke or Murray Pierce or one of them. And then I'd see Gats going for a run after training. Like, I'm now going to follow Gats down the road. But that's just the way we were, and that's probably why we were so good, because we were just, each of us were just. I always talk about the best prepared people in the world win, right? So I made a real effort to make sure I was well prepared, but unfortunately, with that degree of preparation comes sacrifice. So you've got to make a lot of sacrifices, which as All Blacks, we love making sacrifices, and that's the way it was.
And ultimately, you made a sacrifice eventually against Japan at the World Cup in '95, right? Where you could have extended the run, I imagine, by
I did.
continuing playing.
Laurie wanted us to. I thought I thought it was really important that team in '95 were sort of won. If we're going to win the World Cup, we need everyone to feel involved, and Japan was an opportunity. Mark Allen, because once again that team in '95 was the same team. Everyone played every game, but against the Japanese, we saw it as an opportunity for the Mark Ellises of the world, Bull Allen. But Laurie came to me and said, "No, you're playing." I said, "Laurie, no." I said, "No, you got to give Norm a go." May he rest in peace also. And he said, "No, I want you to play." I said, "No, definitely not." And that was it. That was sort of broke the number 63, which is JK's number. Actually, he keeps reminding that's in terms of that's the number of games he played for the All Blacks, Test matches. But yeah, I just thought it was an opportunity really to make sure that Norm felt, because he really put his heart and soul into being a really important part of that team.
Rick told that story about that speaks to the man you were in that decision, which I thought was really cool.
The right thing to do.
The right thing to do.
At the right time.
Yeah. We've got a bit of a rule.
I needed a bit of a rest. 63 on the trot.
We've got a bit of a rule on this podcast. Anytime we have someone on who played with the late great Jonah, we try to get at least one story and a few little interesting insights. Like, what was it like having that man training and playing alongside you, and what was just the power and speed of the guy?
It was what I always say to people is that Jonah was probably the shyest man I'd ever met. Hugely humble, and expressed himself on the field. That was literally it. He just liked hurting people on the field. But he, as I said, very humble. For me, probably 93, when we saw him playing for the New Zealand secondary schools. That's the first time I'd ever met him. And while we were watching him playing in Australian secondary schools, before we played Australia at Carisbrook, he scored 4 tries off the back of the scrum. And we were like, who is that? And it was Jonah Lomu. And little did we know, in the space of, I think, 9 months, he'd be playing on the wing for the All Blacks. It's very sad, because he's the only true global superstar we've ever had and will ever have, without question. And what's the amazing thing, he did that in the space of 5 games. Yeah. In the space of 5 games. In 96, he got dropped. In 96, who went onto the wing? We had Goldie, Cully came in, and Glenn Osborne moved to the wing. And Jonah was on the bench and played in the Wednesday team, and was such an important part of that success of that tour. And I can still remember when we walked off Loftus Versfeld, and after securing the series win, and they're leading a haka, all the boys that didn't strip, and they had their number 1s on, was Jonah. Just so happy that we'd achieved that goal. So that sort of spoke volumes of the man.
I remember that haka. I remember seeing it. Yeah.
And their white shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was after the other iconic moment of you on Loftus Versfeld punching the ground at the achievement. I think that's one of the iconic sporting moments in New Zealand history.
Well, I think that what that showed, and the Lions. I know the Lions when they went there in '97. Geach and McGeechan, he showed footage of that. Of Zinni just out cold, Olo Brown out cold, but that's what it took to beat them, because they just don't go away. They're the same. They're so similar to us. They just keep bashing on the door, and you think you've got them, and they keep them back, and So that's we just knew. I just knew if they had equaled sort of half the series, then if we'd been 1-1 going to Ellis Park, we were never going to win. And to do that and to walk off, and the great Don Clark, who was living in South Africa at the time, I can still remember him hugging me in the tunnel. In those days, no one hugged each other, like especially All Blacks. Yeah. And had tears coming down his face as he said, "Sean, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing something that no other All Black team has ever done, to win a series in South Africa. I can die a happy man." And that's what it meant to because a lot of teams have been to South Africa and hadn't achieved that, because it's bloody hard.
Did that erase the hurt of the year before?
Yeah, I think so. We were playing the world champions, and we played them 4 times in 4 weeks, 4 tests in a row, against a great team. That was a hugely successful team. Did it erase? No. Winning that World Cup was a lost opportunity. So, I'm sort of over it now. But
Sorry, bring it.
I used Laureus. Without us losing that game, Laureus wouldn't have been created. So,
Can you get through an interview without people asking about 95?
95 is a big topic, and believe it or not, because Francois Pinault was obviously the captain of that team. Living in London, without a word of a lie, Frankie, as he likes to be called, lives literally 150 yards from us.
Really?
He's got a house. Yeah.
I've got a lot to talk about post rugby, but take us to retirement. Was it? It was just time. The body wasn't up to it anymore.
Yeah, I got injured. So ironically, I'd never been injured, and then in '97, I injured my knee in a Super Rugby game in South Africa, and it just never recovered really. And I can still remember Hardhead. Hardhead took over in '96, and we had such a great relationship. He was, everyone on that team was on point. Everyone knew their jobs. Hardhead knew his job. And we had great success in '96, '97, even better probably. And by the time we went to go to the UK at the end of the tour, end of the season, I wasn't really fit enough to go. And Hardy said, "I'd like you to be there, and we'll just see if we can manage you through. We'll get you through, and if we can get you into the test matches, that'll be perfect. That's all we need you for." I was like, "Thank you." And then unfortunately, I couldn't play against Ireland. Played half a game against Wales to see if I'd be fit enough to play against the English. And on the Monday night, Hardy took me out for dinner, as we used to do it quite a bit. And I was like, "Yeah." And then he said, "Fitzy, you're going to retire." I went, "What?" "I'm playing on Saturday against the English." And he went, "Nah, you're not fit enough. You can't do the things you used to be able to do. I think it's best you retire." And I said, No, I'm not retiring, Hardy." He said, "Okay." I said, "Give me 6 months." And I said, "Okay, I won't play against English, but I want 6 months because I want to, Because I thought probably '99 would be the time to finish. Considering that in '91 I was going to retire because that was, won the World Cup, lost the World Cup, needed to go and build some houses. And then in '95, I can remember saying to Rick Solizzo, driving to the game, I said, "Ricardo, win or lose, I'm retiring." And he said, "Okay, yeah, sure." Anyway, so I get back to the hotel after that game, and Kevin Roberts, who was a great mate of ours, he said, "Fitzy, you need to come here next year." And I said, No, I'm retiring." He said, you need to come here next year and beat the Springboks, be the first captain to lead a team against the Springboks. Home series. I went, oh, that sounds quite exciting.
Yeah.
So that was that. Then Hardy took over, and just that was the best thing I ever did, actually. Yeah. And then so I had that sort of time of trying to get right. And then Martin Crowe rang me on I was going to play a game for university in March. So I think first game of the season. And he rang me on Friday night and he said, Fitzy, he said, you can't play. I said, what do you mean? He said, you've got the same injury as me. It was literally, we both had the same injury. Osteoarthritis and our knee wear and tear, bone on bone. He said, you can't play, you can't do what you used to be able to do, retire. I went, okay. And honestly, I felt like a weight had just been taken off me.
Really?
Rang Jane Dent. I said, Jane, I'm going to retire. She said, great. I said, because I was going to tell you that anyway.
Yeah. It's like an intervention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But honestly, it was like a weight on my shoulders. And then when I did that, it was like, oh, that was fantastic. And I think it's a case of when you love something so much and you feel so comfortable, it's really hard to let go of it, even though you know you need to move on or change a relationship and to actually do that, I just felt so relieved, because what people don't realise, being the best at what you do is really hard. When you're playing for the best team in the world, it's hard because everyone's trying to beat you all the time. And when you're an All Black, everyone else wants your position, so you've got to fight really hard. So to be able to say, because people say to me, do you miss being an All Black? I mean, no, oh my God, no. Because it took everything out of me, as it does for the guys now. The best players, they put everything they can into it. So, they talk about now playing where your feet are, where in my day it was just, I want to be the best All Black I can be. So you need to make sure you've got the right people around you that are going to let you give it 100% all the time. And then when you retire, it's like, oh God, I can go and have a beer with a mate. Because I had no mates outside rugby, didn't play any other sport, didn't go to the pub, didn't go on boys' trips, obviously.
You couldn't even probably do family holidays, I imagine.
No, well, I think even the family holidays, you were watching what you're eating, what you're drinking, you were running, you were trying to keep fit. Because remember, in our day, it wasn't the same regimes in terms of the science behind fit people. We'd have to wonder why I've got bad knees, because you'd spend 2 hours running every day. Mm-hmm. The time was right. And
how much thought had you put into what you would do after rugby? Because you're one of, if not the greatest All Blacks captain. You've got this incredible leadership sort of skills. Did you think about how it would transfer into the real world and what you would do?
I think being injured, so I couldn't play. I couldn't go and play overseas, which I'd never really thought that as an option anyway. I was a builder, so I loved building. And then there was an opportunity for me to continue within New Zealand rugby. They didn't really want me going overseas. They wanted me to, as you just said then, part some of my wisdom. So I managed the under-21s and I managed the Blues, which was, and JK was a coach, I think, in those days. Was he coaching or was he managing? No.
I think you're early for his coaching there.
He was, yeah. Whatever he was in the team. But that was great too. That was because I didn't want to be a coach. People said to me, "Will you go into coaching?" I said, "No, you go into coaching. It's almost as you're more committed than a player." And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to drive the kids to school. I wanted to, celebrate wedding anniversaries or celebrate birthdays of the children. Where when you're playing, you can't do that all the time. And when you're coaching, it's even worse. So that was a good experience for me. And I had a little business with Jeff Crow. We used to take people heli fishing and heli golf, which was a bit new. Yeah. And there was a company called the Helicopter Line that we that Jeff and I did a little business venture with.
How did it go?
It was good, and then Coca-Cola, a guy that was running Tim Woodward was running Coca-Cola in New Zealand, and he was our number one client. And we were just hosting all the Pack and Save guys, all the New World guys, and then Tim said to the both of us, "We'd like you to sort of come work for us 100% of the time." Because it's not very good for the customers to think you're an outsider. So we started doing work with Coke, which was great, and then that sort of transitioned into just doing other stuff. And
I'm really interested. You made a move at 40, which I really want to dig in on, because you decided to move your family to the UK, and you took a teacher with you, and like, what a decision to make. Like, how did you come to that, and why?
I suppose we'd travelled a lot, but we'd never had an OE. We'd never lived in France, never in the summer, or been to Italy in the summer. Touring through All Blacks, you go to a lot of beautiful places, but you literally airport, train station, hotel, training ground, play the game and then leave. So we hadn't really experienced all that. So when we turned 40, Bronny and I thought, why don't we go and do a bit of a belated OE? And I can still remember going to see my father-in-law. He was our accountant, and lovely man, Dan. And it was almost like going to see, sitting, Dan at home having a beer was completely different to Dan in the office, right, in the boardroom. Yeah. Because I used to do my accounts, and I'd turn up with a shoebox of receipts. Oh my God. Anyway, so I said to Dan, Bronny and I are going to take the girls, and we're going to go away for 2 years and drive around France and have a bit of an OE. And I could see his face was like, you have got to be joking. And he said, right, okay, if you want to do that, that's fine. He said, well, it's two things. The first thing is you need to buy, you sell everything, but you're going to buy an investment property just in case the world ends. And you're always going to have that. And the second thing is you have to tell your mother-in-law. So we did, yeah. So I didn't, why did we do that? I look back now, I think, God, what were we thinking? Because we had nothing to go to. We were going over there. We bought a car. As you say, we took Olivia to tutor homeschool the kids. But I didn't have any. I think Will Carling had organised a few jobs for me. I was going to do some BBC work, Sky. But other than that, we were just having 2 years sort of larking around, really.
Was one of you more keen on it than the other? Like, did you need to convince Bron a little bit more?
No, I don't know. I don't know. Just both. I think both of us are ready. I think we're quite challenging on each other. We like to be busy. We don't like to sort of sit back and enjoy life, relax, in terms of challenging ourselves. So I probably saw that as a bit of a challenge, and we had a lovely life in New Zealand because we're at a lovely school, and then we went over there, and it was fantastic. We loved it, and Grace eventually, because she basically said, I don't like this. I want to go to school. And we're like, oh, God, this is like 6 months into it. And we said, what do you mean you want to go to school? I said, you're going to school with Olivia. She said, no, I haven't got any friends. And that was it. And then she went into a school, and Eva did the same. And that was history. So we're 20 years on.
I don't think anyone's ever asked this, but what happened to Olivia? Because you set up Rooster. Olivia, thanks for the 6 months off you go back to NZ.
Well, Olivia might listen to this, but no, she came back to New Zealand and got married, I think, and but yeah.
So she didn't do the full 2 year term?
No, she didn't do the full 2 years. No,
unbelievable scene.
She was great, but it was a bit different. But
so
a good opportunity. It was great for us, great for the kids, and it's made them very worldly kids, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's a bold move, but a great move because of what we're about to talk about. So you've been there 20 years. Link us up to Laureus and how you sort of got involved. And did you, what was the path to get there?
Well, the Laureus was actually before. So we went there in 04, 05, 04. And Laureus started in 2000. So 99, Rob Fisher rang me. He was the chairman of New Zealand Rugby. He said, "You've been sent a letter from a gentleman called Johan Rupert." And I went, "Have I?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "They've now sent the letter to New Zealand Rugby to follow it up. He wants you to join a thing called Laureus World Sports Academy." And I went, "Yeah, I think I saw that a couple of weeks ago, but I don't really get on very well with South Africans. They don't like me, so no." He said, "Oh, I think you should look at it again." And I did, and we agreed, and that's when we went to Monaco in 2000, and that was the first time I met Johan, who was the founder of Laureus, whose father had a relationship with Nelson Mandela in terms of he was very anti the apartheid system. He had a cigarette brand company called Rembrandt. And then Johan started in 1988. He came into the business and started the luxury goods business that created Richemont. And he'd always loved sport. Cricket was number one love, then rugby. And he wanted Laureus, the academy, the 35 of us, to select the next generation of superstars every year. So we vote. We vote on the 7 categories, and as it is today. So sports team, sportsman, comeback of the year, breakthrough of the year, sport with a disability, action sport, and there's one other. And we vote. 1,000 journalists, sports journalists, give us 6 in each category. And then we have a secret ballot, and then we pick the sportsman, sportswoman each year, which we still do. And then, as I said, from that came the Sport for Good Foundation, which we had to live Mandela's words when he came into that room and uttered those words. Sport has the power to change the world. You as athletes have a great voice. Go out and change the world.
Can you give us some examples of sport for change? Because you must have some stories of things that you've done or places you've travelled with people and impacts that you've seen.
So we have 300 projects globally. So we don't have any of our own projects. People approach us, like Billy Graham, for example, in Wellington, the 9-9 Boxing Academy. They approach us. They submit a paper that says this is what we do. We're sustainable. We're safe. All those things, and then we decide. And so we have 300 projects globally we support, and we're in 45 countries. So we're all around the world. And so, some examples. So they use sport as a mechanism for change. So we talk about getting kids into the classroom, and the classroom might be a sports field, might be a boxing ring. And if we get them in there, we can then help change their lives through sport, because then they might get interested and they might want to learn how to read or write or just values in life, respect, all those things that unfortunately in today's world it's becoming harder to find with these children. And so Sierra Leone in 2005, just after the breakdown of the Civil War, and they were using children as child combatants. And the project there was called Right to Play, and basically saying to children, you have the right to be children, you have the right to play. And I went there with Tony Hawk. We flew there, not really knowing what to expect. And I can still remember flying into Freetown. I'd never been there before. And we arrived in Freetown, and the airport was a pretty rickety airport, in an old hangar, and it was hot. It was the first thing I sort of remember how hot it was. And we had 2 options from the airport: to go on a hovercraft over the water to Freetown, or you could go on a helicopter. And we looked at the helicopter. There was no doors on this helicopter, just a big old twin thing. And Tony and I thought,
Or skateboard.
Yeah, and we said, let's go in the helicopter. And I can still remember flying over, and it was all this sort of burnt grass, just the whole place looked horrible. We had a skateboard. Tony had a skateboard, and I had a rugby ball. And we went to see these children, and a lot of the children had one hand cut off, because the rebels would go in at night into a house and go into the kids' bedroom, and there'd be 2 kids lying there. They'd drag them outside and say, right, you're coming with us. And if the kids said, no, I don't want to come with you, they'd chop off one of their hands. So there's all these children running around with one hand that hadn't. And they were using the children as shields, human shields. And there was a great story of one of the bridges in the last sort of before the breakdown, where they used children to force their way across a bridge, and it's just not right. So we went there saying, right, okay, come and hop on a skateboard, have a skate. They had no idea who Tony was, which was fantastic for me, obviously. And they definitely did not know who I was, but that didn't matter. We got them.
I thought you were going to say they were huge Fitzy fans. No idea who was that.
No, and they just smiled. I can still remember there's a picture of Tony on a skateboard with a kid on the middle between his legs, and the smile on the kid's face, and the same with the kids doing the haka. Just amazing, just phenomenal. So you have the right to be children. There's a project in northern India called UR, which is 2 American kids, boyfriend, girlfriend, just wandering through, came across this village, and there was 100% child brides in this village. Child brides, sort of 12-year-olds, younger, and 100% girls, illiterate. They're like, what the bloody hell's going on here? So they started a little school educating the girls. And then they used football to get them into the classroom and into sport. And now they came to our awards 5 years ago, and 3 of the girls came that are in the project. And now there is 100% no child brides, and 80% of the girls can now read and write, just purely through using sport as a mechanism for change. And they came to the awards because we have each year one of the projects is a winner, and well, they're all winners, but one of them comes that's been a really standout project. And I said to the girl, I said, what's the biggest change in your lives? And she said, Sean, we can now dream. And you think about that. We dream every day, don't we? I lie in bed at night thinking, but they had no reason to dream because they were going to be a child bride and they were illiterate because the boys are the ones that are the superstars. And we're like, wow. And just purely through sport and through this amazing couple has changed their lives. Rugby, Operation Breakthrough in Hong Kong, set up by the Hong Kong police. Robbie, who's a very famous man in Hong Kong, he set up the Operation Breakthrough, which were these children. A lot of children were going to institutions for bad little kids, and Hong Kong police and Hong Kong Rugby set up a project where they go before the judge, and the judge would say, right, you're off to the institution, or you have an option. You could go down to the Hong Kong Rugby Club 3 nights a week and play rugby. And if you don't turn up, you're going to the institution. So obviously, they all took that option. And that has been a massive success, just using sport once again to help change lives. Sport speaks the language of the youth that today understands. And that is a clear indication. We've had policemen that have come out of that, which is just purely through sport.
Is it, these are incredible stories. Is it really fulfilling being involved and being the head of an organisation that is doing this
Robert,
stuff?
when we came back from Sierra Leone, because when you land in Sierra Leone, you take off, you're holding on just because the runways are so full of potholes. And when we arrived back in London, Tony and I both looked at each other as we landed on this beautiful Heathrow. We are so lucky, and that changed our lives. We still speak about it today, that trip 20 odd years ago, changed our lives just purely for what we saw. We're so lucky. We've had sport that's changed our lives. But to see these kids in London, we've got 4 projects in London. We use boxing there, Fight for Peace. We've got a midnight basketball that Michael Jordan set up, where there was a school that had been closed down, and they were using security guards to keep the kids out at night. And we went to them, and because Michael Jordan had this in Chicago, midnight basketball, and we said, can we take over the gym, and we'll resurface it and name it Midnight Basketball. And the kids come in there at 11 o'clock at night. We feed them, dress them, play basketball, teach them, and then they go home at 5 o'clock in the morning. But it's taken them off the streets from being, vandalising cars and doing whatever they do. They go into this thing and change their lives. Just phenomenal.
I get goosebumps as you're talking. I can see the emotion in your eyes too. It's hard to think of something that is more worthwhile for using your profile.
And you look at, and then to go down to Nainai, to go down to Billy Graham in Nainai, and he's got, I don't know if you've been there, he's got this, this is where he went. This is where he started running around the streets of Nainai as a bad little kid, ended up in a boxing gym, hiding from the police. And then all of a sudden, now he's got this facility there that his son runs now. Open doors. He runs 3 classes a day, and just giving kids values in life, which is phenomenal. We've supported that for about 6 years.
There's probably a little bit of an element of ignorance back here in New Zealand as to what you're doing and the work that you do, because you are out of sight a little bit in terms of the everyday New Zealand, and we are so used to the image of Fitzy in the All Black jersey. So to hear you speak about these things that you get to do now on a day-to-day basis is really, really fascinating. Really fascinating.
I think so. I think that comes from a lot of our. We're very humble, and as New Zealanders, aren't we? We don't like beating the drum. Our organisation, Laureus, is very under the radar, which we sort of think, God, we need to raise money. We should be, and I think having a founder like Johan Rupert is a very humble man. And he's got some amazing, luxury brands, but he's very humble and quiet about things, and I think that's just the way we are. And as Academy members, we're like that. But we've raised over €250 million.
Shit.
It's just phenomenal, and we distribute that back into these projects, which is changing lives, which is cool.
Wait till this comes out, Fitzy. Everyone's going to be talking about Laureus. We're putting it in the spotlight.
But I just we've got 3 projects in New Zealand, and we've got Springboard up and just north of Auckland, which is an amazing project also. And that's seriously changing lives of children at risk, because New Zealand has issues, as we know, like everywhere. And just because we're a population of only 5 million people, we still have major issues here that sport has a major influence on the outcomes.
Just sort of switching to business for a second, what are some of the lessons or the skills that sort of transcended sport and have helped shape your business career? Because you started a company with Bron and the one you talked about, and Laureus, and you're in that sort of corporate space. Like what are the fundamental things that are similar across both?
Honesty, integrity, just those good values which make good people. And I look at in rugby, we speak about good people, but I think it's about life. I'm really, in terms of the people you surround yourself with, you've got to make sure, because there's opportunities where you may not surround yourself with good people, so you've got to make decisions. And I think having those values at the forefront is really, really important in terms of business opportunities.
Are you a much different man age 60 or however old you are versus 40 when you took off overseas?
I think I think so. I think as you get older, we're talking about good people. You surround yourself with good people. So in doing that, you have a lot less friends.
Well, is it less time for time wasters? Is it?
Yeah, well, I think it is. Yeah, no, it is. In terms of, I think you talk about. I think Bronny and I have spoken about decluttering our lives.
Is that metaphorically, or literally, or a combination of both?
Well, in terms of people, some people take a lot of energy out of your life. High maintenance people. I always talk about, and Bronny and I both do actually, being low maintenance. Just be low maintenance people, because we get invited to go to a lot of places. Be low maintenance, don't be high maintenance, and I like that, and I like low maintenance friends. Like I've got some such good friends, and all of them are low maintenance. There's occasional ones that you've got to spend a bit more time with and cuddle a bit more, but that's fine. I think when you and this is just getting old. This is experience. I always remember people talking about, I've got life experience, and it's bloody true. As you get older, you go through different scenarios. I think now things I could have done better as an All Black captain with just years of experience. So that's, everyone's saying, poor old Scott Barrett made a few bad decisions this year. Of course he's going to make bad decisions, because he's learning. He's learning on the trot. And it's a big job. So, just give them time and hopefully they'll come out the right side.
I love that, low maintenance. It's so easy. It is easy to say, and Well, yeah, I look at my circle too, and I'm the same. It's like I like.
You are high maintenance.
I'm high maintenance. I like surrounding myself with low maintenance.
I think also in terms of that, it's about making tough decisions also, and I think being a leader also is about making tough decisions. Those growing up conversations I was talking about. There's no point in just kicking them down the road, and I think in rugby sometimes now, in terms of old school rugby, we just keep on kicking the ball down the road, the can down the road, rather than making those tough decisions. That, like in business, you've got to make tough decisions, and it's not going to please everyone, but it's the right thing to do.
Is Laureus and chairmanship, does it have a finite time? Do you have terms?
Have terms. You start with 3-year terms, and I've just signed up for another 2 years. So that'll be me.
Right. Oh, that's
I think, well, in terms of the chairmanship, because it's there's 71 of us, well 69 of us now. So Johan always talks about being relevant. And as you get older, you become less relevant in terms of, there's the next generations coming through. So it's important that we, keep the young kids coming through.
Well, speaking of, I think one of your recent meetings was with Tom Brady.
Well, he was at the awards this year. Like the award.
Is that the kind of luminary that you will eventually look to shepherd into?
Yeah, definitely. If they want to, they're definitely. Well, Tom Brady, my God, he's like the GOAT.
Yeah, what's an interaction with Tom Brady like?
Well, it was the first time I'd ever met him. He spoke at the awards. He gave the Sportsman of the Year award, which I didn't realise was his best friend, Mr. Djokovic,
I didn't know that either.
Novak. But yeah, wow, what an amazing person he is. And to have him there, I tell you another one. I love Alcaraz, Carlos Alcaraz. He won the breakthrough last year, and this year he gave it to Jude Bellingham, which is, to be honest, Bronwyn and I did not know who Jude Bellingham was.
Oh, right.
And he is he's turned out to be a serious, and it was wonderful to see him there. Such a humble man. Playing for Real Madrid, and his mum and dad were there. They're a lot younger than us. But yeah, all this, yeah, it's just nice. And that's, once again, you pinch yourself, don't you?
We've had a number of guests this year, sort of well educated and well placed in the rugby space, with quite a varying opinions on the health of the game. What's your take on the outlook and the future of rugby, short and long term?
I've got some real challenges. I think the financial model is an issue which World Rugby is trying to address, and New Zealand Rugby especially is trying to address it. That outside the international rugby, we're not generating a lot of income. So running the game is proving really difficult for grassroots. Provincial unions struggle, even Super Rugby struggles. So the model probably needs to change in terms of how we generate income. And it's the same in the UK. They've got some real issues at the club game. They've got investors in the game, but if those investors walked away from a club, the club would fall over, which is not a nice place to be. So if we can sort that out, and I know Mark Robinson and New Zealand Rugby is spending a lot of time in trying to make different competitions, engaging the youth of today, which is really important. I look at our daughters; they love F1, never been to an F1 race, but love Formula One. Why? Because there's good content.
Drive to Survive, right?
Yeah, Drive to Survive. We've got superstars. We unfortunately in rugby we don't have a lot of superstars because it's just the way we are. We're a team. We don't like sort of promoting people like a Jonah, for example.
Can that change, do you think?
I hope so. I like superstars.
And what needs to change to create superstars?
Well, the way they're marketed, I suppose. The Lewis Hamiltons of the world, the Lando Norris, Tom Brady's of the world.
So is that New Zealand Rugby's responsibility to start promoting them more like superstars, or is it more someone just has to have that in them and they're going out there and getting that attention?
I don't know whether it's New Zealand Rugby or the Players Association or individuals. Whether they, I would have thought that we want superstars.
Yeah.
Don't we?
Yeah.
I think so. So I like superstars.
Yeah. Kids need heroes as well, right, to aspire to.
I'll go back to Jude Bellingham, somebody who we didn't really know that well. You walk around Madrid, every kid has got a Real Madrid shirt on, if they have a Real Madrid shirt on the back of it's number 5, Jude Bellingham. Wow. That's a serious superstar. And that's good. It's good for the sport.
I'm going to bring in JK just to sort of land the plane. He says, New Zealand probably underappreciates a lot of what goes on in the UK and what Fitzy's done with Laureus, what he's done from a leadership point of view, what he's done for the All Blacks brand, and what he's done for New Zealand is pretty amazing. But we don't see him because he's over there, He's a proud Kiwi. He represents us incredibly well. So I'm really proud of what he's done. What people maybe don't realise too is I was a butcher. He was a carpenter. You know what I mean? That background means he can go from the king to the average guy pretty comfortably. And I think that sums it up really well from the conversation that we have had. The stories you talked about and how you can. There's so many different layers to Sean Fitzpatrick, right?
Thank you.
We've peeled back a few today. It's been so cool sharing this time with you.
It's been lovely.
Last thing from me, Fitzy, can you add us into that WhatsApp group we were talking about at the start? No, thanks so much for giving us your time.
Thank you, guys.